you don't like Palantir, you already don't like Palantir. And if you like Palantir, you probably like Palantir. So I don't know how much the merge is actually doing anything to, I guess, broaden people's minds about Palantir in general. But yeah, I do think if you spot somebody wearing a Palantir coat like in the street, what does that say about you? Or what is your initial thought about that? And I think
it's like seeing a Trump hat or something.
Yes, it's provocative.
It's probably almost a bit worse. Welcome back. You're listening to the Side Projects Podcast, the show where we help marketers understand what cultural relevance actually means and requires from those shaping art, tech, media, and beyond. On the pod today is me, Eli Williams, and Trey. Trey, I'm tired, been moving around like a young lean music video, but question for you to kick things off. Are you at all familiar with a company called Palantir?
Funny you should ask. I became familiar recently. I don't know if you're ever on a plane and you like are looking between the seats at the person in front of you to see what they're watching on the screen.
Always.
Like, oh, what crazy film. But somebody was on their laptop on a recent flight of mine, like tapping away to his Slack colleagues. I was like, what is so crazy that he's like slacking about? And the background of his like Slack had a Palantir logo on it. I was like, well, that's kind of crazy, but maybe it's like a joke. And then he went to his LinkedIn profile and he was like,
sick joke.
He was like, yeah, he was like the head of the whatever like platform Gotham thing that like builds the ships that sink the Strait of Hormuz enemies.
That sentence totally made sense. Well, yes, for some background, which will all make sense soon enough. Palantir was founded in the wake of 9/11 by this guy named Alex Karp, who's got kind of like a shock. He was like Wario Malcolm Gladwell. He's got like this like shock of hair. And it was also co-founded by Peter Thiel, the kind of billionaire, eccentric tech founder who's really been the face of like the new right. He famously kind of funded and elevated J.D. Vance's political career. He's also funded a lot of like transgressive art in the Times Square area. Take that for what you will. And he also this summer taught some courses on the Antichrist. So we're dealing with very nice people.
He has?
Yeah, Peter Thiel. Yeah, on the Antichrist.
Peter Thiel.
Yeah. Sorry, I got those two kind of mixed up.
David Karp.
But
Alex
back
Karp.
to Palantir. So it's named after Palantiri, which is the seeing stones in Lord of the Rings. Very fun. And it's kind of ostensibly a data analytics company. They help kind of aggregate large, disparate amount of information and make it make sense, making the complex, taking it simple, blah, 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 blah. And it's largely kind of operated under and in the shadows for the past 2 decades. But I think really under the second Trump administration has really been both financially and culturally ascendant. So they've signed massive contracts with ICE. They created Immigration OS, which is a software used to track immigrants throughout the country. They signed massive contracts with the military. They signed massive contracts with the IDF. At one point, its stock was up almost over 600%, and it's kind of it's become a meme stock in its own right.
Should we invest?
Hey, I'm talking to my money managers as well right after this. Dr. Karp has legions of followers who call him Daddy Karp and follow the stock's every move. And then if you're a male on X, you've probably seen a kind of famous manifesto that's been going around. But I guess the TLDR is that people really see Palantir as kind of like emblematic of America's slow and all at once slide into this kind of like autocratic surveillance state. But we talk about cultural relevance a lot, and the reason I'm bringing this up is I actually think Palantir is perhaps the most culturally relevant brand of the past year. I don't know if that's something that's ever crossed your mind.
No, we'll say more. I'm curious,
Yeah, well, I think if you know me, you know how much I've been thinking about Palantir and Daddy Karp, but I've really been interested in how this company in particular and how other companies that are not like in our realm or the companies that we would work with are building quote unquote brand worlds. So that's like different digital touch points, physical touch points, collabs, blah, blah, blah.
Fomenting community.
Exactly. And using the same kind of templates as like civilian gen pop brands. So for Palantir in particular, last summer, Max Tawney wrote about how, friend of the pod, by the way, and again, friend in real life, wrote about how they're backing a movie studio. They're also funding kind of like a college or like an offshoot college.
But the movie studio is all about like films that are very jingoistic and kind of like America first.
Very patriotic, etc.
So it's like political. There's some political back.
Yes, exactly. They sponsor a lot of sports events. And more recently, which is what we're going to talk about with our guests on the pod today, they've been dropping some fucking heat merch. No, they've been dropping some merch, including a very viral chore coat. And so we wanted to bring our guest today, Daysia Tolentino, who's an internet and culture reporter, onto the pod to explain a bit about why this is even happening, why a brand like Palantir is kind of vying for cultural relevance. And she has interviewed Eliano Younes, who's kind of like the head of lifestyle at Palantir for GQ, in an article that's been shared widely. And I think we wanted to get her take on the whole thing, but also because it kind of converges with a lot of interesting trends that we've been seeing and talking about on the podcast. So one is like tech's obsession with taste. And then I think the other thing that's of interest is like how world building has expanded and spilled into these kind of like darker, more nefarious territories. But with all that said, we've got our chore coats ready. And
our most dystopian episode yet.
Yes, let's bring Daysia on. Cool. Well, Daysia, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Excited that you're here. So right before we press record, you talked a little bit about how part of your beat was the intersection of the internet and dystopian stuff. And a few weeks ago at this point, you wrote a very, I would say, I guess, viral article in GQ about a viral article of clothing, which would be the Palantir chore coat. And I'm just curious, what kind of drove you to that interview with Eliano Younes, who's Palantir's head of strategic engagement? How fun. And why do you think there was so much kind of conversation and discourse around it in general, the chore coats in particular?
I think we published right before the chore coat came out. But I think regardless.
It's out tomorrow. Technically.
Right. I don't know if they had announced it before, but we had definitely conducted the interview before. Mm-hmm. Conducted is a loose word. We kind of exchanged words via email. But, you know, I think we were very intrigued by the idea of what many people believe to be a war company creating merchandise. I think a couple of years ago you saw this Lockheed Martin like streetwear come out in Korea that caught a lot of people's eyes online as this sort of dystopian moment of merch. And I think that this is an extension of that in terms of virality and interest. It does seem really bleak to create a lifestyle brand, as he put it, around war, or rather, he wouldn't put it that way. I don't think Palantir would necessarily put it that way specifically, but the idea of creating a lifestyle brand with off-white tinged merch to promote this idea of American exceptionalism and American brute force almost. I think that was a really fascinating idea for me and my editors, and it was something we wanted to reach out to Eliano to explore, and he got back to us with very interesting answers.
Yeah.
The Virgil Abloh shout out.
The Virgil Abloh shade, almost. Because, I mean, we explicitly asked, like, is Virgil one of your influences? Also, who else would be your influences? And he did give Virgil his flowers in a way, but then he was also kind of like, we're pre-Virgil. We are kind of influenced by the Swedish design, which is what Virgil was influenced by. So he doesn't own like this type of design, which is fair to say. But I think it was clear online when that round of merch, which is pre-chore coat, which is like these crew necks that said like Silicon Valley Dropout in a very off-white kind of iconography, which I have a lot of thoughts about, like the idea of a Silicon Valley Dropout as like this neo-disruption kind of trope. But the sweatshirts in general, obviously resonated with a lot of people as looking like Off-White.
Yeah.
And in fact, like a moment of Off-White that is past, like kind of older, not necessarily in vogue in this moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's something interesting about the things that are created almost in parody, I would say. And I know they're very earnest about these like these chore coats or whatever they're creating. But I think that becoming part of the conversation via like ironic meme or viral discourse, it's still entering like a cultural lexicon, and it's still becoming something that probably young guys are like, lol, have you seen this, bro? Ha, this is so hilarious. And like fast forward a year or two and suddenly we're all walking around in like our Carhartt merch. Do you know what I mean? Like the kind of trajectory of something becoming like adopted as meme versus like genuinely adopted.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the Balenciaga effect, like Demnat Balenciaga. Right.
Yeah.
You know, being like, oh, haha, let's make a DHL uniform, but it's $2,000. And then people actually wearing it and cosplaying as like DHL delivery men, which is harmless, but this is perhaps not.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we asked if like this type of line, like this lifestyle brand, is serving the purpose of softening Palantir's image in the eyes of the public. I guess to his point, like if you don't like Palantir, you already don't like Palantir. And if you like Palantir, you probably like Palantir. So I don't know how much the merch is actually doing anything to, I guess, broaden people's minds about Palantir in general. But yeah, I do think if you spot somebody wearing a Palantir coat like in the street, what does that say about you? Or what is your initial thought about that? And I think it's
like
very
seeing a Trump hat
provocative
or something.
Yes, it's provocative.
Probably almost a bit worse. Yeah, I'm kind of curious, like, do you think that they think this has been successful? Do you think that they think that we are just snobby liberals in a podcast studio in Midtown Manhattan?
Well, yeah.
We don't know what we're talking about, coddled from,
Alex
coddled
Karp
and
doesn't
protected.
view himself as right wing.
Yeah, well,
he's an anti-woke like left.
I read
guy.
the 22-point manifesto.
Yeah.
I had no idea what the fuck they were talking about, but yeah. So you think that they think that this is a success, and I guess you could, to your point, maybe it is a success because like people who don't want it don't have to wear it, but maybe they're talking to a small group of people, and maybe now when people talk about Palantir, they're just talking about the chore coats and the fun little tote bags for the farmers market rather than kind of like the broad surveillance apparatus. But I'm kind of curious, and like, was that something that you wanted to broach in the interview? Did you feel like you got kind of sufficient answers, or did they feel a bit more like canned PR type answers too? It's a multi-part question.
Yeah. Let me try to address the points. I think that, to your first point, is this a successful kind of line of merchandise? I think so. I mean, objectively,
it's in GQ.
Yeah.
Like you must like a little bit of it, right?
Who, me?
Well, aesthetically, from a like aesthetic like point of view, you think it's kind of.
I think from
worthy of
GQ's
coverage.
point of view, it is more interesting as a rip off of, and I don't want to say rip off actually. I think it's more interesting as a play off of streetwear, which is a big part of GQ style coverage. And it's unignorable. I mean, like in general, the things that I've covered for GQ are politics based. So whether that politics and clothes based. So whether that is the Palantir merch or like a Trump 2028 hat or the fake Chinese Birkins that people are getting from like the factories when people were talking about tariffs. Like in general, I think it is appealing because people are talking about it as, you know, as a form of viral style. Whether or not people are actually wearing them is a different conversation, I think. I think the conversation around the clothes is more interesting to me personally than like whether people are wearing the clothes, because, you know, I don't know, they didn't tell us specifically how many kind of units that they had or that they produced, but they said that they were selling out, and obviously I have to take their word for it. but it is sold out on the website, and seeing footage from their like South Korea pop-up, it seems like some people
That's
are
a crazy sentence.
I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
like, people are really interested. And
Feral for the Palantir merch in
and
South
they-
Korea.
I mean, that's where the Lockheed Martin merch was a couple
Yeah.
years ago.
I
and
wonder why in
so-
South Korea.
Yeah, I mean, I guess is it like wearing like an Enron hoodie or wearing like a
Yeah.
Lehman Brothers shirt? I mean, I guess, you know,
I
they
think some
were
people don't know the context, right?
Right.
Like, they think it's just some funny brand. Or
Yeah.
some people like just
Is it
like
popular in
logos.
South Korea? Like,
That's their second most popular,
that's so
like,
crazy.
consumer market. And then the first is the United States, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you think what I'm kind of reading between the lines, at least a little bit of this, is organizations, particularly the government or those that have very close ties to the government, i.e. Palantir, using similar language or strategies that like brands use for cultural relevance? And I guess you could see that with, and I don't know if cultural relevance is the right word in this context, but like with the White House's social media accounts, like using memes, using social media manager tone of voice, or like merch drops for Palantir, even like OpenAI had a merch drop previously. And I'm curious if, as someone who kind of tracks internet culture fairly closely, both on like the consumer and the brand side, if you're also seeing these strategies being used in sort of like unexpected ways. And I think this past year it's felt very dystopian, because this past year has felt very dystopian.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, if you're seeing this being harnessed kind of elsewhere than like a CPG or soda brand or something.
I mean, what's unexpected now, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
Like, I think that the internet is definitely powered by outrage at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I think the snarky POV is the easiest kind of way as a brand or an entity like the White House to capture attention. In terms of brand, on the brand side, I don't know if it's as popular as it used to be. Like, I see more complaints now via like TikTok videos, or even on LinkedIn. I saw the other day, like a creator, I believe she has a podcast. She had made a video joking about how she would like to be sent to Coachella, but she didn't really expect anything serious. And there were really nasty comments in the comment section, and brands kind of chimed in about how they wouldn't send her to Coachella.
Whoa.
And it's one of those things where I think people are really tired of cruelty online. It's not very chic. Like, it's not a very good look, and people are already exhausted by how mean and angry like the internet is, that I think having the White House or Palantir like co-opt these kind of funny or like aesthetic kinds of trends in terms of, brand marketing, I think that's almost like a sign of the times that it's time for a shift in the approach to interactions online.
I'm curious to why, like, I just read that OpenAI book, The Empire of AI.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called?
Did you
By,
read
like,
it?
Karen. Yeah.
I read it. I like absorbed it. I soaked it in, and like I
You felt it.
shit it all out.
Yeah.
Diarrhea.
Osmosis.
Yeah, but it just was so interesting how it, talked about like Sam Altman or Peter Thiel. I mean, David Karp wasn't in there, but I just Alex Karp.
Dr.
But, like,
Karp to you. Sorry.
God.
I think David
Ready
Karp
for my
has a
checkup.
Tumblr.
But yeah, it's just like all these how do you say it?
Megalomaniacs.
Yeah, they all kind of have these feelings of like godlike purveyance over, the courts that they rule, and they all fund each other in these like weird, sinister ways. And I'm just curious from your point of view, like why a brand like Palantir, which has been kind of in the background, it's not very public facing in terms of, it's not like a household name per se. Like, I don't know, a lot of people don't know what it is fully. Why are they trying to make these forays into quote unquote culture or into the conversation? Like at the end of the interview, I think, I'm sorry, what's the guy's name?
Eliano.
Eliano was like, oh, we're trying to be kind of like a lifestyle brand. And even if you don't know what Palantir is, the clothes are like the way that we are getting the lifestyle literally on the backs of people everywhere. Like, why are they trying to do this?
You know, well, the interesting thing about Palantir, to your point, is like, I literally asked, like, how are you a lifestyle brand when you're not B2C? Like,
when you're taking lives.
Yeah, and that too. But it was more so. It almost feels. I mean, Palantir, if you look on Reddit, like has a very strong fan base.
Daddy Carp.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, serious.
And
is that really what they?
Yeah,
call it?
it's like a meme stock too.
You know, people like companies mine like their fans for these creative ideas, obviously, right? So like, I feel like whatever kinds of little quotes and one-liners they latch onto, that's reflected in the clothes, right? I think first of all, like every kind of product, every brand, every company has a fan base at this point. Like I think you've seen that rise a lot in the 2020s, but also, you know, to his point, like his answer to me about what is a lifestyle brand for a brand like Palantir, it is basically courting a lot of people to reflect the values of your mission and brand, and that may be that we should be going to war.
Get your toes in the warm sands of Fallujah.
Exactly.
Crack open and nice.
I feel like it's definitely like aimed toward a very technocratic, like gung-ho, America first type of person, like this new age kind of MAGA person or MAGA adjacent person that we've been seeing online in the past like few years. But in regards to like what is the purpose of, I guess, megalomaniac tech bros trying to create a lifestyle brand, I think this is so reflected in this time of taste, like this oversaturation of taste or like taste making, right? I think in the tech sphere, a lot of people have been really hung up on this idea. I don't know if people know what that means, if that makes sense. I think the struggle with taste is almost reflected in the dated kind of designs of the Palantir merch, right? They're sleek, sure, but like that era,
fit sleek, yeah.
But it's like that era of Off-White is a few years old at this point. Off-White doesn't necessarily look like that right now either, you know? It's just, it looks different. Like if you look at some of the collections over the past few seasons, like it's not like, I don't think it looks like what inspiration, like the clothes that inspired the Palantir merch, right? In theory, or not, that inspired the Palantir merch. But I think that is such a reflection of like a grasp for taste, like understanding that someone or some brand or some aesthetic is popular, but not understanding like why or when, the moment. I think that's critical to cultural literacy, and it's also critical to building taste. It's like, I mean, anyone can have a different amount of taste. Like taste is super subjective, obviously, but it's just, you're not even on trend, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
you don't have to be on trend.
It's interesting that all of these companies ostensibly have access to an amount of information that few of us can conceive, like an amount of information that is so granular that like you would need an insane microscope at a top American or European or whatever university to look into. And still they cannot figure out what is like cool or interesting themselves. You know what I mean? And that's quite fascinating to me, is like they know everything and yet like they don't have it. They don't have that kind of like ineffable cool thing. When was the last time tech was cool? I guess even Apple, maybe. Like I don't know. Have you been tracking any of this stuff that do you know the company called Nothing?
Yeah.
Yeah. They just hired I think his name's Charlie Smith, who was the former CMO at Loewe, who like, you know, they had like this pop-in TikTok account, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's in every fucking mood board. But now I think what's interesting with them is like they're clearly trying to make tech like cool and interesting. And I think to some extent it's kind of working because it's not laced with like the bad taste that other tech companies have in America.
I think nothing is different though, since they're trying to be more kind of old school, if that makes sense.
Like how so? Sorry.
Or I just feel like aesthetically, right? Like
yeah.
They appeal to people because it reminds them of a more, not even an analog time, just like a more retro tech time.
Mm-hmm.
I think that works in their favor a lot.
Yeah.
And has definitely generated interest among like people I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's cool. It's interesting. It looks good. I don't have any of the products. So maybe to that end.
I got the headphones.
And?
They work well.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Are they anything special?
No, but
yeah.
Yeah, I do think there's like something interesting in that kind of retro tech, everyone looking back to like simpler times, etc. And like one thing I was talking to Eli about earlier was like, especially for these AI brands specifically, all of the messaging and the advertising uses videos from like nature or people living this like quote unquote tasteful life that is analog and offline and disconnected. And I just think it's so interesting kind of in the same way that Palantir is like harnessing these aesthetics that do not belong to anything that has anything to do with like the product that they create or what they sell. In the same way, like you don't see anyone on the beach going like, oh, I'm in the moment, toes in the sand, and like, hey, Claude, what time is the sunset, you know?
Yeah.
So there's just this like weird cleaving in our minds between this like what we are being told is this facilitation of our creativity or whatever, or like analog lifestyle, and what they actually function as, which is like drone bombing, ice fueling, like IRS
data
buying.
Aggregation, actually.
Right. Like, data's all around you and you can, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense.
I think that appealing to taste like implies something very human, which is that like everybody has different taste. Everybody has interests. Like everybody has things that they prefer, you know, whether that's aesthetic or, you know, music or artistic, creative, whatever. And like that trying to harness taste, like I think tries to signal your humanity in these products and companies that are basically deeply inhuman. I mean, AI doesn't have personality. AI doesn't have the human spirit. Like it doesn't have the sense of creativity that a person has. It doesn't have, you know, the knowledge and ideas and preferences that people do that are imperfect and weird and like very idiosyncratic. You can't really program that, and you also can't buy taste. It's hard to learn taste. Like I think you kind of sent me something about intellectual influencers. Like I think that's a really interesting moment that we're in right now. But it's like when you follow an intellectual influencer, what is the purpose of doing that? Are you trying to build your own taste? Like I think building your own taste requires a fundamentally offline experience, like going to shows or reading a book or watching a movie, like doing things out in the real world to figure out who you are as a person and what you actually like. And that is not something that a tech company necessarily can harness and sell back to you.
Yeah, it's like especially because they are generally these like holders of the most data that you could ever aggregate. And even with all of the like knowledge in the world at your fingertips, you still can't figure out something as easy as like expose yourself to culture, and therefore you will be able to like discern what is good and what is bad.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, 100%.
Even in like, I'm not knocking Virgil Abloh. I was never really a fan of him in life, but even in death, I just like his aesthetic, which I still think was like kind of lazy and cribbed from other places, was just so penetrative in so many cultural spheres that it's like, of course it made its way to Palantir, Silicon Valley, HQ. And that's like the kind of style that they're emulating, or the like, plus the cyber sigilism, like little kind of designs on the chore. It's just like, you take the most obvious person in design and you're like, oh, this is what taste is, because people were like bowing down at his feet when he was at his peak or whatever.
Not understanding like
the
aura of
right.
Virgil Abloh, you
Yeah.
know, like what makes him special. I think in general, probably like beyond Virgil and Off-White, the idea of the late 2010s streetwear moment, like hypebeast streetwear moment, is like a symbol for a lot of people of some sort of masculine coolness, which is obviously something that a tech company like Palantir or even like a Meta aspires to. I mean, you see Mark Zuckerberg trying to look like Drake. Like, it's like, you know, there's
and not even Drake. Like Drake's lame. You know what I mean? I think that's so funny.
Is that another example of that, right? Like, you see the biggest person in the world. I think people often like, I think big companies and big like CEOs will see the biggest person doing XYZ in culture, and they're like, that is the marker of taste.
Right.
And I'm going to say this in as like
let it rip
as anonymously as possible. I had a very interesting conversation with somebody who's like starting a company.
Are they well known?
No.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think it'll be fine.
Okay.
But I just, you know, like I had an interesting phone call with somebody who's starting this company and talking about how they're appealing to people with taste. And it's like, okay, they just moved to New York to start this company, and we're having this conversation about like, oh, like what's the best way to attract media for something like this, blah, blah. And then
the veins in Trey's face is like a cartography map.
Well, then it's like, he's like, but I don't like New York. And I'm like, no offense. Like, I don't know how you can try to be an arbiter of taste and not find anything redeemable in New York City. This is a cultural center.
Suburban behavior.
I mean, you can't like purport to like try to be some sort of taste maker if you don't go out and experience culture. And that is such a huge disconnect. I felt like that conversation was the perfect encapsulation to me of the issue of this disconnect between culture and like tech bros trying to co-opt culture.
Yeah.
Is that there's a fundamental misunderstanding of like why people think things are cool or why they like them.
Yeah, maybe ask what time zone this person lives in. Is it a CST, a PST? Oh, they don't.
Oh, okay.
But they just
they're the hater.
Their time zone is X is X the everything app. Yeah, that's their zip code.
Yeah.
X the everything app is crazy.
Yeah. So good.
No, I was just gonna like to continue this thing about like the Virgil Abloh of it all, the like anti-New York of it all. I just feel like there's so many people who have kind of bubbled to the surface because they were at one point kind of crowned as cool without wanting to be that. Like James Turrell, for example, who maybe bad example, like he's got good art, but it's just like, or what's her name? Vanessa Beecroft, like who were kind of anointed by like a Bean Trill Kanye type of crew. And like, therefore, you know, Kim has like the art from James Turrell in her house or something like that. And it's like, you've commodified something that was genuinely cool at one point into being like a Calabasas wall hanging.
Yeah.
And in the same way, Palantir is kind of like, you know, taken the rug from whatever this 2010s streetwear culture was and like hung it on the wall in the form of their stupid chore jacket or something. But
well, I mean, like also Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez are
oh
like,
my God.
They're like
they bought the Met Gala. If I buy the Met Gala, maybe I will finally be a tastemaker.
We're actually going to do a live reading of her book about the dyslexic bug in the submarine. Every morning we wake up and we do our affirmations. Yeah. I mean, I guess my question is like, are we upset that the chore code exists, or are we upset that it's like of like old millennial taste? Because I feel like I might fall more into the former category than like shit is ugly, which I actually don't even think is that ugly.
I don't think it's ugly. And I don't dislike Off-White. I like Virgil.
Okay.
But I mean, like, the Virgil, like if I look at a few years ago, right, they did an entire Virgil retrospective at the Brooklyn Museum, which was like all of this stuff, and it's like a retrospective. You know what I mean? Like it's not the forward motion of Off-White as a brand at this point. And regardless of that, I don't really care what they try to like co-opt, like what kind of aesthetics they try to co-opt. I'm in the same camp as you as like, why does this exist?
Yeah. Well, I think it's also interesting that like in talking about the retrospective element and why maybe we're circling around this, like, can tech be cool? Can these guys in tech be cool? Is that it is by nature retrospective by virtue of like the fact that they hoover up all this information and stuff that already exists in the world. And that seems to be like their only way that they're like interacting with life is like via screen or whatever. Mark Zuckerberg has that like wakeboard thing that he rides around in. But,
I think if I had to be like, who's cool in tech, like, and maybe this is like dumb and like a hot take, but I actually really like the Patreon CEO, Jack Conte. I've always kind of thought he was cool comparatively.
Okay. Baddie alert. What's his deal? Yeah.
I mean, he started Patreon because he had his own band and wanted a place to, I guess,
make money from his songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, like connect with fans directly, which is basically the entire creator economy model now. But, you know, I think a big thing that differentiates him from other tech CEOs is that he had his own creative endeavors. And had his own interests, like, and had his own taste. And that's not something you can buy. It's something that you cultivate over time, and it takes patience, and it takes like trial and error, and it's not something that you immediately have.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, these guys don't know patience because everything is like,
'Cause
I'm going
move
to drink
fast and break
Soylent and, you know,
Right.
sit in front of this computer while my eyes bleed and I'm wearing a diaper, but at least like the code got out. So
Yeah, it's kind of akin to this like the Miami influencer scene too, where it's like
oh my God.
just this, you know, hotbed of like the
measles.
yeah, I'm not even gonna try and describe it, but I just find that so fascinating.
Well, I'm from like the San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay. Yeah,
And so
area.
yes. And I've always felt very uneasy about, I guess, the presence of Silicon Valley and the tech industry, right? Like, or more so the like big tech. Because I've always maintained that like San Francisco is appealing to tech types because of the myth around San Francisco as this countercultural hotspot and this very like ahead of the curve subcultural creative city. And if you go to San Francisco today, there are pockets of that, and like I know people I've grown up with whatever who still do creative stuff, and it's like cool, but you know, overall the idea of San Francisco is no longer that. Like the idea of San Francisco in the 60s, 70s, like that doesn't exist anymore. It's totally like paved over by the idea of big tech, and it's like in the landscape, it's in the feeling of the city, and I also think that like that is the MO of big tech, like, or of these tech bros, not just now with like this big moment of like taste, right? I think it's deeply embedded in the culture of the tech industry of we need to be in a place that is the energy and the ethos is countercultural, and then we can co-opt that spirit, and then we are also countercultural or disruptive, because obviously in the 2010s their favorite word was disruptive, right? But then in the 2020s, like you saw, they moved to Austin, another weird city, like
keep Austin weird.
Exactly, an objectively creative city that has its own really interesting like culture and like music spaces, creative spaces, huge. And then they moved over there. Why are you moving over there besides Texas, right? Because there are other cities in Texas. Like,
Ain't got no income tax.
well, yeah. But like, I think choosing Austin is like intentional in the sense that like it is also known for its creativity. I think that tech is so attracted to the idea of creativity. And I think that coding is creative.
They don't got it.
But
they don't got it.
But when it comes to actual culture and aesthetics, it's like, the only thing you could do is be in proximity to it and not quite create it or make it. Because even like if you look at all the platforms, internet culture exists. I think that like a lot of content is culture, right? But that has nothing to do with the tech people.
Yeah.
Like that has nothing to do with tech executives or people who are creating the algorithm, et cetera. It's like it is the people on the apps, the creators themselves who are creating the culture.
That's why I think like the CMO or whatever of Loewe going to nothing doesn't mean anything, because like the person who created the culture around the brand is Jonathan Anderson, and whatever happened on TikTok, whatever like they were doing, like ultimately funneled back to him and his vision. So you can take the different people who like touched it at one point, like, oh, let's work with Matthew Williamson, you know, who used to be part of Bean Trill and stuff like that. It's just not the same. Like Virgil's gone, Jonathan Anderson's not going to nothing phone. You know what I mean? It's just like you can't buy it, you can't hire it. You just got it.
Damn, you sound like Kelly Catrone.
I feel like we can't knock to social media managers here. You know, I mean, they grew the Loewe page. To
no,
be
absolutely
super viral.
not. But I think like at the end of the day,
yeah,
you know, it's all in service of like this one vision. And when the vision is gone, they can still try and capture it, but like it's not the same anymore. That moment has passed, you know?
But I guess counterpoint, like people are interested in nothing.
I'm very interested.
Well, right. Yeah. And I think like this will only do well for them. Like I'm sure having whatever guy from Loewe will, you know, but the point being that like in the same way they moved to Austin or they Hoover culture here or whatever, it's like you can try and co-opt the aesthetic, you can try and hire the right people, but ultimately like if you do not expose yourself, Dr. Daddy Carp, to like something interesting in culture, if you don't experience it, you can't.
You mean
can't
writing
make
a book doesn't
cool.
make you cultural?
DDK. No, cross-country skiing does. All right, Daysia. Well, this has been fascinating. Our chore coats are on back order, so we'll let you know when they come. We'll do a little step and repeat. Before we close out, 2 final questions. First one, a recommended book, show, movie, restaurant, block. Yeah, I don't know. Being outside, you know.
Oh.
You don't have to answer all of those, just one.
Love 29th between 7th and 6th.
What?
No, I'm just kidding.
No. Book I'm reading right now, Deconstructing the Kardashians by MJ Corey.
Okay.
It's not out yet, but it will be out on May 5th.
Okay.
It is, I mean, if you want to talk about intellectual influencers, like MJ Corey, she is like the foremost Kardashian scholar. I love that stuff. Like people who use like, it's so dense, but like people who use like philosophy and like you know media theory to deconstruct the Kardashians. So I'm reading that right now. I guess like
a real high low.
Low. I mean, what's a low?
Like that book is high low. Like,
that is a real high low.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so fascinating though. Have you ever seen her content?
The Kardashians?
No.
Oh,
her name online is Kardashian Colloquium.
Oh no, I don't think I have seen.
She like, I don't know, it's unreal. Like she basically is laying out how the Kardashians have created this new media manifesto for this internet era, but also just in general. So yeah, I definitely recommend that. Also reading One Bad Mother by E.J. Dixon, which deconstructs like bad mom tropes. She's also an internet journalist. Bars, love Schmuck.
Okay.
But I feel like I'll never be able to get in again because it just got on the best bars of North America list. And I'm like, damn it.
And where can our listeners find your work?
You can find me at yapyear.com. That's my newsletter. And on Instagram at Have a Nice Daysia, Daysia.
Wow. Very good name.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you guys.